This is the history revision video. Very simply, I'm going to go through some excellent ideas on how to revise. So, on the first two slides, you will see an attachment I've put on effective ways of revising, things like the Cornell method, these kinds of ideas. I would suggest using that as a particular focus point, maybe just to give students some idea about how they intend to try and do the work. I would say the best ways for them to probably revise topics is to chunk it into small sections rather than try to learn vast amounts of information all in one go. For example, break up the main topics that they've studied this year, such as the suffragettes, the First World War, the Second World War, the sort of 1950s to the 21st century, so things like the Cold War and Vietnam. Create separate mind maps for each of these, identifying things like causes, consequences, key events, those kinds of ideas. But the point with mind maps obviously is not just dump lots and lots of information on there, but it's also to try to ensure that they put their own annotated drawings on there to help trigger memory of particular things that they're doing, and then obviously do little branches with very brief things like dates and keywords and terms on it. Another effective way I would recommend is flashcards. Coming up with a list of questions, maybe 5 or 6 on one side of a card, and then the answers on the other. Again, this is a very, very effective way of allowing them to revise key terms, particularly, but also, just remember particular events or people, or particular causes or consequences of events as well as they go through. The next way I would suggest, as well as an effective way of revising history, is timelines. Again, not listing hundreds and hundreds of events on a timeline, but sort of again for each topic taking maybe between 8 and 10 events, putting these in sequence in terms of date order, and then again just trying to test themselves regularly in terms of remembering the sequence of those events, and obviously if they can attach the dates to them as well, that would help them be able to sequence events correctly. And then finally, I would say probably the best way to revise is to create a revision plan, identifying what they're going to learn, when, and what activities they're going to do with this as they go along. Again, this will obviously help them hone their revision on particular topics, so they're not just sort of sat there without a clear idea as to the direction that their revision is going to go, and what kinds of things that they're going to do on each particular day that they're dedicating to history, these kinds of things. I hope all of this information helps. Again, I've attached the first two sort of information slides about different methods of revision, along with some web links to the Year 9 information that was sent out anyway. But hopefully all these ideas will be quite useful for helping prompt them. I would also get them perhaps to think about trying to write effective introductions and work on answer structure and things like this. Most of the questions that they'll be answering on their end of year test will focus on particular kinds of question that they're being prepared for in GCSE history. So for example, write an account questions, so this will ask them to basically tell the story in a sequence of events. So for example, what happened at the beginning, how this led to something else which caused something else. So it's very much a chronology focused question, so hence the need for timelines and to be able to put things in importance. The second kind of question that they'll have to answer is a question about significance. What was important about a particular event? So what was important about it at the time it happened? What were the long-term consequences of it in terms of its historical importance? So in other words, what changed because of it? A typical question like this might be, explain the significance of the women's suffrage movement, something like that. So they would obviously have to think about, was it more important at the time, and in what ways might it have been important later on. Third kind of question they might have to answer would be a compare question, so comparing two events or particular people. How are they similar? So again, looking at, well, they were similar in one way because, they were similar in a second way because, they were similar in a third way because. Again, writing probably more than 2 or 3 examples for that kind of question is going to be spending too much time that perhaps they don't need to do. And then the final kind of question that they'll be asked to write, again, might just ask them to explain a particular chosen factor and why they think it might be more important than another. So again, it's just important again that they don't write down too many different methods. Again, thinking about which group of people was most badly affected by, a particular event in history, something like that. So again, they don't have to list every group of people, but perhaps just 2 or 3 examples, and again for each one explain how they might have been affected badly and why. And again, all of those kind of questions to do well require them to have a good chronological understanding of the events and the order in which they came, as well as obviously good knowledge and facts and key terms and all those kinds of things. So all the methods that I've listed on slides 2 and 3 of this PowerPoint will be very, very useful, as well as the ways I suggested earlier, such as mind mapping, flashcards, timelines, all these kinds of things as well.